In life spanning, there is no plan B. I'm Jean Fallacara, and my guests are coming to this podcast for a reason. There's no rules, no BS, just pure biohacking. I don't want to know what you have to sell. I want to know who you are. Claudia, welcome to No Plan B. I'm so glad to have you today. We've been in touch from far for years. We've been in touch for real, in real life, at the Live Long Summit in West Palm Beach. And it was some sort of a crush where we said like, let's get on our podcast. Let's talk about the future. Let's do a thing together. And I'm so glad that we met in person. You do beautiful things. You've been busy. You are, of course, well known in the space of longevity and biohacking as well, because you do things right, and you do the right thing too. So here's the thing. You're here. I want to know more about you, where you're coming from, what you have to say about yourself. And my first question is very simple. You are the CEO of a company that is called Athena Health, a co-founder. Okay, you've been in business several times. You're an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, investor. But you're from the banking system before. How the heck can you become an entrepreneur when you come from banking?
Jean, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. And, adore what you're doing too. And I think that's the beauty in life when you kind of meet a kindred spirits and people who, get it and are aligned. And it's just such a joy. And you feel like we've known each other. We were talking about past lives and various timelines and dimensions, multiple connection points for sure. So thank you so much for having me on today. And, even jokingly, speaking of multiple lifetimes, I mean, I've had multiple lifetimes in this lifetime, right? And I think, just as a meta view of it, I think it's so important for people to follow their passion, what excites them. I think society trains us to say, you work hard, study hard, and you get a job. And if you're lucky, you'll stay there till you retire. And then when you're all like retired and burnt out, well, then enjoy life or whatever as well. And, don't follow your passion and purpose. And I think, for me growing up, I had the joy of having a mother who was very much a visionary and could connect the dots. She was involved in, seeing that she came from a medical background. She grew up in Ireland where at the time women could either work for the government, become a teacher or a nurse. That was it. And as soon as you got married, you had to stop working. So that's the environment she broke up. Exactly. Yeah. Because you had to have many kids and obviously the big Irish families, right? So my Irish family definitely falls under that trap. The Foleys are pretty much everywhere, which has its benefits. And so when she came to the United States, she was involved in the first liver transplant at Sloan Kettering. And so she was quite advanced in her thinking, her connections, her network. And she saw a huge shortage in nurses in the US at the time in the 80s and 90s. So she set up a company, flew around the world and recruited thousands and thousands of nurses to come to the US. So essentially giving all these nurses the American dream, bringing them in, etc. And so that was the type of mother I grew up with people always saying like, your mother's amazing. I was like, she travels a lot. She's not there. But she definitely was wired differently and this visionary and many other things. And so that was growing up that sort of anything is possible if you put your mind to it and, think big. And how can you think bigger? And, it's about connecting the dots and, this person could help with this and, making it happen. And I saw that, I think, time and again. So I'm so grateful, obviously, to have such a visionary mother. And, I wanted to go into medicine. And when I was filling out my application forms and I did the chemistry and I did the biology and everything I needed and I had the results, but I thought, do I really want to be in a hospital with neon lights every day? Is that my highest good? Is that my highest service? And I thought, well, no. I like to be free. I like to travel. I like to do things. I've lived in over 9 countries in my lifetime so far, in this lifetime. And I decided to go down the business and languages route. And at the time, when you finish with 3 master's degrees, right, in business, it was you go into management consulting or investment banking. So I ended up at Goldman Sachs and, got to do the 100-hour work weeks and all of that. An amazing experience and amazing, friends and contacts. And many are still friends as well, which is really beautiful, doing cool things in the world. But when I decided to leave banking, for me, I always knew I was an entrepreneur. I always had ideas and things things like that too. And I felt, I had a good foundation, and I was just going to kind of wing it with a friend from business school, and found our first company. So that's how the transition kind of happened from banking and a very structured environment to just that feeling of freedom. And I've had the pleasure of having you on my podcast recently, and you said, the most important thing is freedom. And I think it's that freedom to be creative, to create something. So not only just have the idea, it's about the execution, right? I mean, any entrepreneur knows, like, you can sit around like, I've got a great idea, but it's like, done.
Without being scared of doing it. That's probably,
or feel the fear and do it anyway, right?
Right.
There is too.
Yeah.
And a mentor of mine who speaks to millions of people, he's like, everybody feels fear. It's what you do with it that differentiates those who are successful and those who are not. And we all fail, and I, love to quote, even Walt Disney needed 302 bangs to say no before one said yes. And Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television, and countless examples. And, do you let that stop you or not? So I know I've done, different things and from e-commerce, I was involved in fintech and like a bunch of different things, fitness, wellness, and separate to personal passion about health optimization. That was a bit separate and sort of more continuous, but it's where do you find the passion? What's exciting? And, surrounding yourself with people that inspire you. I love to be the stupidest person in the room, and just kind of soaking in knowledge.
It's hard. That's a challenge, no?
For you, maybe, Jean. I don't know.
Come on.
But yeah, and I think I love the fact also, I think that through journey of life, you really, and living in different places, you really understand that you can learn something from everyone. I don't care if it is the person cleaning the streets, is it the person building something or whatever. It's, having that curiosity to connect with the person, get to know them, and like they have something to teach me, without a doubt, 1,000% of the time.
Yeah, recognizing that humans are humans, and whatever the title that is behind that, it is so important. I was telling someone yesterday, that if you spend 1 minute per day to meet one new person, you're going to have 365 friends at the end of the year, because you're going to discover that you have something in common with everybody on this planet.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I mean, 1 minute probably I talk too much would be a bit short to really connect. But if you gave me 5 minutes, maybe a day, I could.
Interesting. Here's a story. Science has demonstrated that it takes 100 hours to know someone. That's a lot of time together. Like, you become friend after about 30 hours spent together, but 100 hours, you know the person and it becomes a closest friend after these 100 hours that you spent together.
I am like challenging this science report. Is this like the average person? Like, I love, in my 20s, I was embarrassingly, Jean, I was like this, I felt I had to say hi to everybody in the room, very superficial, and not in a bad way. It just, I felt the need to spread myself thin and just, say hi to everyone. I embarrassingly would think I would say yes to 2 parties in one evening. So I was like late for one, another. So total disaster. And I've learned through work and inner journey work and things that I've done myself, like the best evening I can have is if I have 1 to 2 very deep conversations. And I love that. And then you can really go deep. You can really kind of almost touch the soul and get to know somebody and see them. And so I would argue the science that, like,
I agree.
I have some amazing friendships after like one great dinner party where I ended up just speaking to the one person or 2 people or whatever it is too. So yeah, not 100% sure about that scientific research.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. You have a very good argument and a very good point on that. On this, one question still, having a deep conversation is not given to everybody. And most of the time people don't want to unveil their real thought or their real inspiration. And they talk from the book they've read, the sentences they've listened, or the people that have said some things and they repeat it. So having those deep conversations are quite a tough job. But I do agree, when you get into that space, you don't need to have 365 friends. You only need 1. Yeah.
Et voilà.
Et voilà.
And also, I think that, I guess through time, we become better at filtering people who are genuine, authentic. So one, I think, is the ability to connect deeper with people quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And then also to have that filter mechanism to realize when someone's, quoting something or, oh, I read in the paper, like, you can tell that they're just making
Yeah.
up something to make up something. And some
Yeah.
people are like that. And I'm no judgment. Honestly,
Yeah.
at this day, at this
That's
stage of
okay.
my life, everyone can be how
Yeah.
they want
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
But I like to spend time with people who like to go deep and, either from whatever the topic, honestly. So I think
Yeah.
it's just, I love learning. I love connecting and stuff too. So yeah.
That's a sign of high intelligence. You've been always supporting women because of your mother?
So not just because of my mother, obviously I'm female as well. So I have a
I didn't
bias.
notice that.
Just so you know, I identify as, nowadays, on sait jamais, well, you never know.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
particularly with my mother, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, or I'm happy to share that too. And so, my mother was such an inspiration for so many years and really a shining light in many regards, and her work and what she did and helping others too, and very much a give personality. And in January 2020, pre-COVID, she had a procedure on her legs, and the doctor binded both of the legs, which caused, and then she had to have them elevated. And at this stage, and just before this procedure, she was going to the gym 5 mornings a week, highly active, high energy. So it's like that's where we were coming from. And because of having the elevated legs, it caused 2 blood clots, we found out after, to go from the legs to the lungs, causing low blood oxygen
Oh,
levels, which made her faint. And she must have literally fallen like a plank backwards, opened the back of her head, caused a tremendous concussion. For 8 weeks, hospitalization in the United States is not very typical. So if you're in that long, it's quite severe.
yeah.
Bleeding in the brain, but into the ventricle, not the brain matter. Thankfully, I mean, there was a different events, but out of the off the back of it, then it was COVID. So the recovery, what she would normally have gotten, and the support was obviously not there on several regards, right? The extra physio sessions you would have done, the extra brain training, the support was, they just said, with COVID, unless it's near death, like
Mm.
we're not going to treat it. And then the lack of social interaction. But what it did then come up was that there was dementia there that had already been indicated previously that we hadn't picked up on. There was just more note taking and things. She was in her 70s, but again, very fit, very active. And through then investigating this further, I came across the work of Dr. Dale Bredesen, who I'm sure you know, who has protocols on how to assess for early indication of a path to Alzheimer's and dementia, and then what you can do to reverse it so that you actually don't go down that path if you catch it on time.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm so passionate, because I'm like, there's so many of these chronic diseases that are not necessary, type 2 diabetes, dementia, etc., if you catch them on time. And we know what the ideal markers are where people
Mm-hmm.
should test for and where they should be, just not many people actually know it's possible. And so this really led me down the path of wanting to share this with the world. And it was COVID. And, I had friends coming to me asking, well, what should I be doing, or what else is there? And then, friends' parents would come. I'm 72, I'm a diabetic and disillusioned. I feel like I'm on the path to being amputated. What's the alternative? And I'm like, guys, I'm not a doctor. I'm like, I can't be giving medical advice, but look at the work of this doctor or this doctor. So this
Cool.
is what inspired me to start a podcast as well and share these conversations with amazing pioneers with the world. And I just thought, oh, it's a little side project for during COVID, but within 2 months of launch, we were
Became,
top 5%,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
in the world, and now I've increased from there. But for me, that's all vanity. I'm not interested in that. It's like, how can I help people? And I got a message the other day from someone who said she's, been listening to the podcast and following social media, and her mother is indicating signs now of dementia. Like, where should she
Oh,
start? What should she do? And even that helping one person, Jean, is
it's an
like, oh,
impact. It is, yeah,
yes,
making an impact
getting
there,
goosebumps.
helping one person at a time. It's
Yeah.
true. Do you think that women are more sensitive to those illness than men, or they just neglect more their health than men? We see dementia growing actually instead of going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, so great question. I mean, first of all, I think women are wired to consider everyone else and
Yeah,
then look like, okay, what else should I do?
yeah,
Kids, family, home, work, whatever is going on. And obviously with the expectations in society now, like, oh, women should work the same hours and also take care of the kids and the house and like, all the rest of it. And it's not possible. And I went through health issues previously as well and realized I'm not invincible. So we need to work on that. So one, I think, is for many women to understand the importance of self-care, which was a big learning for me. I was also the one like, oh, if everyone else is fine, I'm fine. Wasn't really the case. So that's number one. Number two is the lack of research on women. So
Yeah.
in 1977, as you'll know, the FDA banned women of childbearing age from clinical
Yeah.
research. And even though that was overturned in 1992, a gold standard had been set because obviously women are more complex than men, right? When men have a 24-hour testosterone cycle and women have a 28-day varying
Hmm.
hormonal cycle. So it's very hard to do clinical research on them. And I think I saw a statistic that like 70 to 80% of adverse effects from medication are in women because they were not tested on women. I mean, these are serious numbers. And then the lack of information around perimenopause, menopause, etc. And that means that women are told like, oh, you should take an SSRI instead of saying these
Yeah.
are, perimenopause, menopause symptoms, etc. So I think it's lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, lack of self-care, but it's specifically around the dementia and Alzheimer's. I mean, they're calling it like type 3 diabetes, right? There's a lot of lifestyle in
Hmm.
interventions, but specifically around estrogen and the drop off of estrogen if women are not taking body identical HRT, hormone replacement therapy, coming to menopause, it can age the body exponentially. And we've discussed in the past glycan age. And I was speaking with
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
founder, Nina Nicolina, who was showing that women are aging on average 8 years biologically in that 1 year between having their last period and officially declaring menopause, because it takes a year and a day. They're aging on average, I want to say this again, 8 years biologically.
8 years. Yeah.
Eight
So
years because of the fall of estrogen.
even if you prepared yourself, but you don't go the right path, and you get like, if you've been, let's say, biohacking, and you reverse your age, but you get to the menopause, and
Mm-hmm.
then even the 10 years that you've saved there are gone.
Gone. Yeah.
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 Wow.
Yeah. And that's why, the body identical in the US, it's bioidentical. It depends which pharmacy and compounding pharmacy, etc. But, there are brilliant minds in this space.
Hmm.
Dr. Joni Brighton, Dr. Amy Killen. I mean, they have very fun also Instagram channels with silly stuff.
Amy, yes.
Yeah, exactly. You've had
Yeah.
Amy, I think, on as well, right? And I've even had Dr. Joanne Manson, who was heading that study 20 years ago, where it was all misinterpreted, etc. And so anyway, for all the women listening out there, from the age of 35, this could apply to you. So don't think it's only when I'm after 50, right? So perimenopause can start from the age of 35, and every woman is different. So just to be on top of it and know yourself and check in with yourself as well to be in your best state and stay like that for longer.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Falls down again to what we were saying last time on your podcast. Falls down to education. Like, I'm listening. You say starts at 35. I first got like a surprise, then I realized that yes, it is true that some women get into menopause at 35.
Mhm.
But where is the communication toward that? We need people like you to spread the vibes and the words and the knowledge, because I don't think that the government does anything toward that. The pharmaceutical industry is zero, and women unfortunately go on social media if they have the time because they're busy
They
more
do.
than
We know they
men.
do.
Yeah, but
These
they
are
do.
multi-billion dollar
Okay.
companies. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they don't find information because they don't know who's saying the truth. Like, if you listen to certain male recommending intermittent fasting every day to women,
Mm.
this is nonsense.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
know from myself. I mean, I can share an anecdote with that. And like, I love trying out things. And I'm like, oh, intermittent fasting, great idea. And I have, the great app, Zero app, which I love. You hit it and I'm like, you can see which zone you're in, etc. And oh, I'm hitting ketosis. This is great. And for certain times during the month, totally fine. So, the first half, but the second half, not good for women, right? So the luteal phase where progesterone is increasing. And so I was trying at the time a continuous glucose monitor, and I had my Aura ring, and I had like optimized my sleep and the room temperature and the dark and like everything I needed and my evening routine, you name it. Like, I teach this stuff. So I was like, okay, I have to practice what I preach. But I'm still waking up groggy. I'm looking at my Aura ring and I'm still seeing these awake spikes, even though I didn't feel like I woke up, but I generally thought I was a deep sleeper. And because I was trying the continuous glucose monitor, it actually showed me I was hypoglycemic at night because of these longer periods of intermittent fasting. So my blood sugar was dropping down to 40, 42. I mean, extremely low. So what was
Wow.
happening was triggering a cortisol response to get the liver to be producing more energy to keep me alive,
Yeah,
essentially.
alive. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And and so that's what I really love. And that's the exciting thing about this, biohacking devices, health optimization, whatever you want to call it,
Data. Yeah.
the data and the
Mm.
personal data.
Yeah.
And I'm like, show me a doctor in the planet Earth. Now we obviously have more longevity and concierge doctors, but at the time, who would have asked me for my Oura Ring data and my
Yeah.
CGM data as a non-diabetic to say, hey, you're hypoglycemic at night. We need to solve this. And how do you solve it? I have, at these times, I have some almond butter closer to bed with no palm oil, no sugar. It maintains beautiful blood sugar levels overnight. I wake up feeling fantastic.
And
So
you sleep well. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
You have deep sleep. So what would be your recommendation in terms of intermittent fasting for women?
So I think number one is know your baseline and be in a very good baseline. That means you have a really good blood profile, right? So your bloods are in a good state. You're not deficient in minerals and vitamins as well, because I think this is the detriment. Women are focused on just having a salad, and I'll eat a salad every
Mm.
day, and salad is good for me. But you need to have the variety, as Dr. Mark Hyman says, eat the rainbow
Mm.
each week and make sure you're getting enough protein. Also, women don't have enough protein. So if women are coming from a very good baseline in terms of all their vitamins, minerals, etc., they're fit, they're healthy, and they're eating well, then typically the first 2 weeks of the cycle are a good time to do it up to ovulation. And thereafter, it's not such a good time. And personally, I feel that it can be so detrimental to health
Mm.
and it can cause higher cortisol levels and stress levels on the body, which is like counterproductive. It's not what you're trying to do. So rather have like a super healthy, savory breakfast. It doesn't need to be a much, like if you're worried about, quantity, whatever it is, but have that. It'll kickstart your metabolism as well. And then, a healthy lunch and an early dinner, much, much healthier, do that 3 hour window before bedtime. So I think we need to separate from what works for men, works for women,
Completely. Yeah.
especially in this case as well.
Yeah, thanks for the advice. This is great tips. For once we clear up the mess and say the truth. So, because I've heard so many things about this intermittent fasting for women, and I hear so many different stories, but I know that what you just said is exactly true and it works properly. You are trying, as we are, we're on the same path on that, to make longevity mainstream. Why?
So, I'd like to define, if I may, longevity or what it means for me, because if I say the longevity to some people, they're like, well, I don't want to be 80 years old for 20 more years. Like, what's the point in that? And
Yeah.
I get it. Like, I don't, the
Yeah.
way we foresee that nowadays, I don't want to be like that either.
Mm.
So longevity for me means how do you optimize your health, your well-being, your mental state, your joie de vivre, right? Your joy of living and happiness in your life and passion and purpose today. You raise that up and live like that for a very, very long time, because then you want to live a long time doing amazing
You
things
don't want
and
to die. Yeah.
impact. Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So just to define that as well. And so why do I want to make it accessible to more people and for more people to know about it? Well, one is I've seen the pain it causes when we just go down the path of this current sick care system and the toll it takes, not just on the person. So my mother with her dementia, and like had we known, then what we know now, it could have been picked up early. We could have, likely reversed it and had a completely different situation for the family. And it doesn't just affect the person who's ill, it's all the family members. I mean, I
Yeah.
see my father suffering so much. He's
Of
in
course.
this nursing home the whole time. I have an uncle who's had 4 open heart surgeries, one who's had several strokes. Yeah, like a big family, big issues, right? This is all like needless suffering
Yeah.
because there is another way. Yes, there will always be, some rare disease or genetic defaults, but for the average person, you can choose, and we have a choice. And that's a beautiful thing. In this lifetime, we have a choice to understand, to learn, to be curious, like what is different ways, what are different modalities I can do to step into that highest version of myself. And as we discussed in the past, also, for me, it's body, mind, and spirit. Very important. If you're burning inside and have all this trauma unresolved, you're not going to want to also live that long either. So working on the body, mind, and spirit, and then not going down that path of the suffering and the disease and the type 2 diabetes that leads to blindness and amputation. I mean, it's horrific, right? Really. When you have a choice to do some lifestyle changes, maybe, do that intermittent fasting. Dr. Jason Fung is doing amazing work also on this and reversing type 2 diabetes in a matter of months, depending on how long people have been on medication. So when you have that choice and when you have seen the pain and suffering of going down that horrendous route and the cost as well, by the way, but that's another story that people forget, then why not choose to be the best version of yourself today? And in part of what we're doing and with you as well and with what I want to do as well is to empower people to know there is a choice and there is another way. And also to make it more accessible. And with Athena HealthSpan, what we're looking to do is bring in technology to the piece to really help to understand each person. And because we're all individual, right? Like with my example with the continuous glucose monitor and the Aura. And to understand that we have our medical history, we have our diagnostics where we are now, and we can be put on these health optimization journeys on how to step into that version of ourselves in 3 to 6 months, and then incorporate wearable data so that on a day-to-day basis, as we maybe sleep poorly or particularly stressed, what are the protocols that need to be adjusted to suit us and our well-being in that day? So that's why I'm passionate about it, because I believe longevity should be everybody's birthright and not just the 0.01%.
Yeah, I do agree on that. The longevity space has been promoted and floated by investment and VCs and bankers and all these things and money in general, because they were overselling stuff and overpricing everything that was there. Tomorrow, like Dave Asprey just said recently in my podcast as well, tools are becoming more accessible, so you can get more data. You can get more tools to track down every single aspect of your health. It's going to help to get there. Now, allow me to jump back on one thing that you've just said, and that hit my left part of the brain. Mind, spirit, and body. You're going to have to define this to me, please. Many people in the science are already in a difficult position trying to separate mind and body, but you add another layer of spirit. Let's make it complicated.
Or not, right?
Or not.
It's a choice.
I'm pretty sure you're going to get not complicated your answer.
So body, I think, is relatively obvious, right? The temple that's, or whatever you want to call it, the house that we live in every day. And I think truly that our body is here to support us, right? So the human inside, the spirit, the person inside. And that's why we need to take care of our body, because we take care of our body and it takes care of us. So this is our earth vessel, right? That gets us through this lifetime. So I think that that's fairly obvious. Then the mind, right? So it's our brain function. I know you've had Jim Quick on the podcast. I'm a huge fan, love his way of thinking and how even from being a brain injured child, you can repair. And I'm so fascinated about the brain and the power of the brain. And we don't even know that much, right? There's so much potential still there. I heard today, I was listening to another podcast, that the electricity field in the brain is similar to a light bulb. Which doesn't seem like much, right?
And depends on the people. Some are 2 watts and some are 20 watts.
That's good. I like that as well. And so, we have this strongest supercomputer in the universe between our ears, and we don't even realize it. And how do you take care of your brain? And a dear friend of mine, neuroscientist Dr. Kristen Willemeyer, also says we don't see the brain, so we're kind of like, oh, it's fine. And,
true.
She's done work with professional former NFL players, who have so much head trauma and head injury, and you don't realize the importance of the brain until you start on some sort of neurodegenerative disease, which is so sad, right? And so again, prevention is better than cure. Check your markers and get on top of it and keep the brain healthy, sharp. It will serve you. It's basically everything you need for your day-to-day life. And then we have the spirit. So the spirits, and I think everyone will have different definition, but I think for me, it's that inside knowing, it's your being, it's your true essence. It's like, when you're in that beautiful flow state, the things that bring you joy, and you just know that that's your true spirit, right? And people will have different names for it. But if that genuine, true spirit of yours has maybe gone through, trauma, and we all have our limiting beliefs from when growing up in our lifetime, and typically between the ages of 0 and 7, and we've, heard this a few times before. And the limiting beliefs that are set, we continue with throughout our lifetime until we actually become consciously aware that we are not our belief systems. We are actually much greater than that. And we are these powerful creators that we forget about. And so for me, that is your true essence, your true spirit that might be bogged down by thought patterns that either you developed or that were imprinted on you from your parents. Oh, you can't do this because you're not capable. You're too wild. You're too difficult. Whatever it is, that this narrative that we don't even realize we have. And so how do you do the work, do the inner work, do the shadow work? There's different terminologies to really peel back those layers and uncover, like, who is my true spirit? What do I love? Like, genuinely love, not because society tells me so, not because of this, but like, what brings me joy? And if you have that clarity, what brings you joy, and you try to do as much of that in each day, then you will tell the difference, because you will be showing up as a true version of yourself.
Okay. So would that fall into conscientiousness, awareness, or vibration? Because it's a neurochemical aspect of this.
Yeah. Consciousness, yes. And consciousness what is consciousness? It is a vibration, essentially.
Yeah. Today we're trying to get, like, if there is consciousness or not. Trying to define that. I think that, yes, we are conscious human being, even if we express most of the time our subconscious. But at the end of the day, the subconscious is electrochemical reaction of what is in your mind and what is deeply inside of you, like what you call your spirit, your true you. That falls down to self-awareness. Yeah, love it.
And self-awareness and self-knowing, I'd almost say, right? Because I think it's, I've forgotten the quote that I heard the other day, but it's when you think, you don't know, and when you know, you don't think. You know this?
Yeah. That was a quote from this Greek philosopher. Yes. I love that quote. At the end of the day, we don't know anything because, here's a fact. The future is unknown. So whatever the principle of thinking and research and science and technology and mathematical formula that we set on paper today, we set them according to the moment that is now and the past. But the future is unpredictable, and what is true today can be completely false tomorrow. So we don't know.
And this is it. And that's why it's like you can either be miserable and suffering and everything's terrible today, or you're like, you know what? I'm going to love life. I'm going to choose to be optimistic and be enthusiastic. You just be like, let's just see what's coming and enjoy the present moment and be in the now and put on the positive glasses, because why live life in a miserable way when you can live it in a great way, right? So it's a choice. Yeah.
Is it, Claudia, is it teachable? Is it something that we can teach people? Some people say that you cannot change the way I am, the spirit, to take your words. I admire your positivity. I admire your way of thinking, but it's not me. What do you have to say to this? Can you change these people? You're a life coach, so.
So there my curiosity hat comes on, and I would question, why do you think you can't change it? What is that belief system you have running that you believe your current reality is the only reality? Why would you limit yourself that you couldn't create a different reality for yourself?
I think that most people will answer you, it's because of my past. I would guess that I'm built, or I became the person I am now. And that's probably the answer you hear most of the time, I guess.
I mean, I love challenging and I love questioning, and to say, okay, well, where in your past did that belief come from? Oh, my father thought like that, or my mother used to, or my whole family are like this. Okay, so you learned that. So you came to planet Earth and you opened your eyes. You're not born as a baby thinking, I can't do this, I can't do that, or the world is terrible. And we forget, like, this is the neuroplasticity and neural pathways, right? Certain neural pathways are like the superhighway. I can't do this, I can't do that. Money is evil, like whatever it might be, that narrative that you might have heard growing up. And it's repeated and repeated. And especially, and I thought it was really interesting, from the ages of 0 to 6 or 0 to 7, where the brain of children are in a theta state. So it's this meditative state, which is highly receptive. You only need to hear things once, is what I heard from this.
I wish my wife would be in that state.
Well, theta brainwave training. You
Sorry,
can
it was
put your
just
voice
like,
on it.
it was an easy joke.
And so and so we are so receptive that that neural pathway becomes that super highway. And the path of maybe what we would choose is like a jungle that you need to get your machete out and
Mm,
start, going through the jungle to try to force yourself to think that way. And then the next time you do it and you're going down the super highway and you're like, no, I choose to go the other way. Okay, yeah, no, the positive and I'm not really feeling it. And then maybe the third, fourth, fifth time you're like, no, I know, and okay, I'm going to focus on the positive and I can hold it for 1 minute and maybe whatever. So it's training and it's work. And, what we speak, and again, it's the vibration of voice, right? But we have to
hmm
be so careful with the words we choose. How many
mm,
people are like, oh, I'm so stupid, or oh, I'm so like, I can't do
mm,
this. And they just say it offhand and they don't like, oh, I didn't mean it. But it's like you reinforcing in your subconscious that you can't do this. Why don't you choose to be like, you know what, I can do this? Or I love the rephrasing instead of like, I have to get up, I have to, go to work, I have to get my kids, instead of changing it to, I get to get
mm.
up. I get to
Yeah,
pick up my kids. I get to
yeah,
go to work. How many
yeah.
people aren't able to do these things, right? So
Right.
it's
The
shifting that.
verbiage, like, yeah, the way you express yourself.
Mm,
Actually, you got me on some things here when you said you have to be very careful on the word you use.
mm,
I found in my personal life that is absolutely true with women
mhm,
more than men.
mhm.
Each word has an impact. And I've learned to, like in France, they say roll your tongue 6 times or 7 times in your mouth before saying something. That's what I do when I talk to women
Uh-huh.
because every
So
word counts way more than for men.
yeah, I mean, I think you're more typical woman. I think there's some are more dwellers than others. I'd say my mind is already on to the next thing, so I'm not maybe your typical woman. But from what I know from some other friends, let's say that some women will like really analyze and analyze again. Well, he said this, and it must mean
Yeah,
this or that.
yeah.
But it's really funny. I've had Dr. John Gray on the podcast, who was a Buddhist monk, and then after I think
hmm
it was 8 years, decided to come out and had no idea about relationships, so started interviewing people, and then became a relationship and sex expert because he had to find out. And everyone's like, "Oh, you actually know more." Anyway, 26 New York Times bestselling books later, but he was trying to educate and he was saying, on the podcast explaining that it's a hormonal thing, right? So
Mm.
he's like, men, when you come home, you ask your wife or your significant other, how was your day, honey? Right? Very American. How was your day, honey? Don't comment. It's just ask. And she'll go on and on and on. And just when you can't take it anymore, just say, go on, tell me more.
Ah,
And let
no.
it go on and on and on. Because what's happening? The women feel they're being heard and seen. The estrogen levels are going up, and then they feel super connected and they feel super happy, and they will do anything for them, right? So a little bit women might be like, I'll do that. So, and the opposite is true for men, right? So for men, they just want to get a bit of appreciation. They're there to be the providers. This is the words of Dr. John Gray. I would might have phrased it in a different way. But all you need to say is like, well done, or that's a great idea. What happens?
Recognition.
Testosterone levels go up, and they're like, oh,
Yeah,
I've provided. I'm doing a good
yeah,
job.
yeah,
The
yeah,
worst is if
yeah.
men's testosterone levels go down relative to their estrogen levels, because yes, men have estrogen levels too. And that's when they get emotional and shouty and messy. So it's like, no, just find little words like good job or great idea. That's great. And then they're like, oh, perfect.
Yeah,
So
I think it
anyway.
works on both. Yeah, but if you, let's pretend you switch over what you just said and you apply the reverse. You go to men and you say what you said to women, and you go to women and you said what you go to men. It's going to work also.
Really? But men don't
Yeah,
want to talk about it, do they? I don't know.
yeah. It's just like I know that everybody on this planet is trying to get some sort of recognition in a way or the other, so
Acknowledge.
appreciation.
Sure.
And today, women are becoming stronger and stronger. They need to be supported as well. So a small bump telling them, good job, I'm proud of you,
Yes.
will probably raise testosterone at the same time in both, but it would
Win-win.
work. Yeah, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
win-win,
Yeah.
absolutely, especially before menopause.
hmm
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
When the
okay.
estrogen is still there. Exactly.
Yeah,
No, I
that's
mean,
it.
look, appreciation. Who doesn't like appreciation? You
Correct.
appreciate children, the big smiles. And
Yeah,
I think we're just so busy. And, I teach my kids as well, like we spend 99% of our time somehow thinking about ourselves, our own problems, our own things. So
right.
having somebody else external be like, hey, that's amazing. And that's great. You can make somebody's day. Like that might be the nicest thing anyone has said to them that day. So a little
Yeah.
appreciation goes a long way.
I think that you can make anybody's day by love.
Mm,
Our planet lacks love. As simple as that. We raise our children without showing the true love because we want them to behave in a way or the other. But I'm a true believer that if you raise your children by just surrounding them by pure love, you're going to do a way better job than trying to teach them whatever lesson that you've heard or read or seen on any media or whatsoever. And our world today lacks of this basic part of our well-being, that is love. A bit of oxytocin added to the water to everyone wouldn't be a bad idea at all.
That sounds like a cool experiment. We are trying that as well.
Yeah, let's do
I
it.
totally agree with you. Yeah, exactly. Let's find a few other volunteers. We'll do some oxytocin in the water. Exactly. I love it. So I really like what you're saying. I love what you're saying, I should say, even better. Is that, and when you become a parent, for those that are parents listening, we unfortunately or fortunately fall back to things that we saw our parents do in childhood, right?
Yeah.
So, and you pick up yourself like, oh my God, this is what my mother did or my father. Like, oh, and so it's again, that unconsciousness is like running the show unless we consciously decide a different way. And I do very much agree with you is that we expect so much of our kids and to do this and that. And it's just pausing and playing and that unconditional love. And, I'm guilty of, I'm busy and I have this and don't forget to do your homework and then we have to pack this and that. And it's like, is that really important?
Yeah, no.
Pause, play, hey, how are you? And cuddles and love and remind them how much you love them. And, with jokes like, I love you to the end of the universe and back. And they're like, is that possible? I'm like, I don't know.
That's a good question, actually. It would take me nights to make a calculation on that now.
Calculated provision, I'll let my daughters know this is exactly. I actually don't think it's possible, right? To end the universe and back, but okay. And so I think, how to spread more love, right? And I don't know, I'd love to hear your strategies.
Good question. How?
What do you think?
Well, it's always like you always have the artificial way of doing it. Like as a joke, I said, like, let's put oxytocin in water and have everybody on this planet drinking some water. We put fluoride in water and we actually poisoned a lot of people in Europe with that. So why not oxytocin? The chemical way could work, definitely. We can also provide chocolate to everyone and make a simulacra of love.
MDMA, yeah.
MDMA. But I think that it falls back to what we were saying before, education. We need to educate people on this planet to be true. Like most people are the reflection of who they would like to be, but they're not themselves. When you start being yourself, your true you, like the spirit, using your definition, then everything is easy. Everything is natural, and love is just coming along the way by its natural steps without forcing anything. It's as simple as that. So we can give a bump using chemicals or oxytocin, but I think that our role, both of us, is education.
Education, and I think it's also starting with self-love, I would say. I would add to that. And so I think if you ask a room of people on average, how many people love themselves, and it's not in a arrogance or whatever way, I would say 9 people would struggle to put their hand up.
Do you love yourself?
It's been a journey, Jean, honestly. I perfectionist, like now, yes, like much more. Is it perfect? I don't know. I'm always like, I could do this better. Like I am a recovering perfectionist. Never enough.
Progress.
Never enough. Exactly. Like second daughter syndrome. I had to prove myself. 3 masters, 4 languages. Like never enough, never enough, never enough. And, again, limiting beliefs from childhood and, it's always moving the goalposts and accomplish this. That's on the next one as well. And so it's coming back to self and not needing to have any external validation, but actually appreciating the uniqueness of self and what you can do and just being happy with that. And it's not settling. It's actually just finding the joy in our uniqueness, right? And our
recognizing who you are. I think that most high achiever are like that. Never enough, always trying to do more, getting to the next level, learning more. These behaviors become obsessive compulsive, and I've been into that as well. I can tell you, Claudia, I adore myself. Not I adore myself, honestly.
Has it always been like that, Jean?
I've always loved myself, but today it's way higher than that. I found in a perfect balance and equilibrium of everything, and I'm no longer obsessed. And I think this is the past, like you, obsessed of learning, obsessed of achievement and successes and businesses. But those are like exteriors stuff. And when you turn out to look inside, this is where you can only love to the extreme. Yeah.
And knowing that in the whole wide universe, there's only one of us, and just appreciating how unique we are and what a gift we are to ourselves.
Yeah.
And just
I love that. One of my favorite sentences is always like, and I don't take credit for it because I heard it in the movie with Brad Pitt. Don't remember the title,
7 Years in Tibet.
No, way violent,
Fight Club.
Fight Club. When he was saying we are all unique snowflakes, and it is true. We are all unique snowflakes, and we're all made differently, even with this complex crystal structure that water offer to be a snowflake. Every single snowflake on this planet is different.
It's amazing,
That's
right?
Crazy. Yeah.
I mean, even identical twins are different, right? And again, the soul and essence and things too. So yeah, I think that's to celebrate in itself. Like, what an amazing fact that we're on this planet and we have this lifetime and mission and things that we can do. And so need to embrace that and more.
Yeah. What's your next big step? You're on this enormous project now. How do you see yourself achieving what you are building up?
I think for me, so yes, with Athena and speaking and getting out there. And I think for me, what I would love is, to help as many people as possible in this lifetime know that they can choose another path. They can choose a path to step into the highest version of themselves, to not go down the health issue path. So as I mentioned, body, mind, and spirit. So it's more than just you can optimize your health or you can reverse your biological age. Those are all great. But when you figure out your why, your purpose, that is so great, and you've done that shadow work and you've cleared that, and you're really your true essence of why you're here and what is your impact that you want to make on this planet, that's greater than yourself. Can you imagine that if the whole world, that we all were on a beautiful mission to make the world a better place? Like, what an incredible place would the world be? So I think that's part of the mission, is to impact, inspire, to educate, whatever the word is. It's a technical term, but to connect with enough people so that they understand, like, there's a beautiful higher path out there that we can do to step into our true version of ourselves, to impact in a positive way the planet, other people, and just live at a higher version of reality that's available to us right now.
Love it. So inspiring, so beautiful. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for sharing your thought. If people want to learn about you, where do they find you? Or what's the best way to find information on what you're doing? What's your mission? How they can be helped by you as well. It's important because you're there for them.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So on Instagram, I'm with the @longevity and lifestyle. Very long handle.
That's a very easy one to remember.
When I began with longevity, people are like, how do you spell longevity? It's so complicated. So @longevity and lifestyle is where most content is. I have also podcasts. People are welcome to check it out. Jean has been on it as well. So definitely check out that conversation. It's the longevity and, with the and symbol. When I came up with the name, wasn't thinking. So the longevity and lifestyle podcast, available on all channels. And then obviously my name, Claudia Von Boeselager, Boeselager, on LinkedIn as well. People can connect with me.
Yeah, you're very active on LinkedIn as well. And I will definitely put all these links on the caption when we're going to put this episode on YouTube and on different platforms.
Thank you.
Claudia, thank you.
Jean, thank you for all the amazing work you're doing, your inspiration, and this mission that we share on this planet to help as many people as possible. So I look forward to many more great conversations. So thank you so much for having me on.